The story continues with Chapter 50, Follow Me. At the law firm, Yang Hui-wook was working diligently for a bright future, though he was filled with anxiety and stress. However, he suddenly remembered that his fiancée, Hyunjin, hadn't called him at all throughout the weekend. His mother had also nagged him, warning him not to think about So-eun and to treat the golden goose well. Though he felt a terrible headache, as a filial son, he didn't see it as a big problem. Finally, his fiancée called. He thought he would receive an apology from the princess, but the situation didn't seem good at all. The fake ring was causing a huge problem. He hurriedly rushed to the jewelry store, only to be immediately scolded. Yang Hui-wook firmly insisted that the ring was real, so Hyunjin turned around and berated the saleswoman for misappraising such a valuable ring. However, the saleswoman calmly pointed out the transaction history. On the 25th, Yang Hui-wook had bought one ring, and on the 27th he sold it back and bought another one. At that moment, Hyunjin remembered that the romantic proposal had taken place on the 26th. It was obvious that this ring could not possibly be the real one. Hyun Hui-wook trembled like a dog in the pouring rain. Amid the whispering of the store staff, Hyunjin scolded Yang Hui-wook and walked away. Just like that, the marriage collapsed. Hyun Hui-wook stood there in a daze, watching the delicious prey he had invested in for so long slip away right before his eyes. He secretly compared her to So-eun in his mind. So-eun had never asked for anything extravagant. Even a tiny, cheap ring had moved her so much that she praised him endlessly. Only now did Yang Hui-wook realize how wonderful So-eun truly was. He was certain that So-eun would still be there as a backup, waiting for him whenever he wanted. Meanwhile, important documents had just been delivered to Taejun. It was truly a liver donation, and the donor was none other than Han So-eun. With her kind heart, she had been willing to endure countless scars and damage to her health, all just because she wanted to be loved. He should have realized it earlier, when she avoided raw foods, or when she trusted so completely that she had become part of Yang Hui-wook's family. Taejun clutched his head in torment. At the same time, a message from So-eun popped up on his notification. She wanted to know if he was okay, as she had heard he didn't go to work today. Taejun wondered what he had done to that girl. He had been jealous, selfish, and said things he shouldn't have. He was sure those words had hurt her. As he glanced past the broken vase, he suddenly noticed a small strawberry candy that So-eun had left there. He didn't know when she had placed it. Taejun felt even more heartbroken. If only he had found her sooner. At the company, So-eun was still feeling worried about her boyfriend. She found Taejun's attitude at the swimming pool quite strange and different from usual. While she was immersed in work and thinking about Taejun, Yang Hui-wook suddenly appeared, disguised as a repairman. Hui-wook had patiently waited at number 285 and put on a pitiful, fake sincere expression in front of So-eun. He looked at her with feigned sympathy, asking if she had lost weight and whether she had blocked his phone number. Despite So-eun's obvious anger upon seeing the bastard, he calmly acted noble and said that she had been too hasty in cutting ties with him, especially since her liver hadn't fully recovered yet. He shamelessly boasted that he was very busy and his time was precious, yet he still came to see her because he couldn't forget her. He demanded they get back together, spouting disgusting promises that made So-eun's skin crawl. She lost her temper and started shouting at him, also announcing that she already had a boyfriend. This surprised Yang Hui-wook greatly. Even as So-eun tried to push him away and leave, he grabbed her arm and bragged about his career. The situation was getting tense, and the gentle So-eun didn't know how to escape. Suddenly, a firm hand landed on Yang Hui-wook's shoulder, forcing him to stop. A deep, steel-like voice repeated So-eun's request. Let her go. Hui-wook was stunned as he looked at the muscular man standing protectively in front of So-eun with a threatening expression. Hui-wook tried to act tough to show off his strength, but his bravado instantly deflated when the man stepped forward and spoke in a low, menacing tone. It was Eunpyo. He pulled So-eun away with a final warning, ignoring Hui-wook's grumbling. Afterward, the two went to a convenience store. Eunpyo bought So-eun a can of coffee, and they chatted lightly for a while. He also assured her that he wouldn't tell anyone about her and her ex-boyfriend, since he didn't really talk to anyone anyway. That night, So-eun tossed and turned in bed because of what happened during the day. She felt lucky to have such a kind colleague. When she checked her messages from Taejun, he had gone completely silent since morning and hadn't said anything more to her. After thinking for a long time without finding any solution, So-eun decided to go out and buy a non-alcoholic beer she had seen advertised. Just as she stepped out of the stairs of her old, shabby apartment building, she ran into the familiar figure of Taejun. He was just arriving, and they were both pleasantly surprised to see each other. He brought the candy he had found in his house, the exact one So-eun had secretly slipped into the broken vase as a small apology. They looked at each other, trying to hold back their mixed emotions. In the end, So-eun couldn't endure it any longer. She threw herself into his arms and begged him to come inside, just for a little while. Her house was quite small, and she felt embarrassed about it, but Taejun only noticed how clean and tidy it was. Taejun found a spot to sit down and remained silent. This was the first time So-eun had a guest over, so she felt quite awkward. Seeing his serious, brooding expression, she thought she had made a mistake, and instinctively prepared to be punished, according to the old rule, a flick on the forehead. In the same reflexive way she had done since childhood, So-eun raised her hand to cover her forehead, and waited for the punishment to come down. But he did nothing. Instead, he only looked even sadder. Taejun was tormenting himself with guilt and longing for So-eun. After a moment, So-eun asked if he had eaten dinner yet. Taejun replied that he was fine. However, the suggestion of a quick bowl of ramyeon became the perfect excuse for him to stay longer, and his eyes lit up at the idea. So-eun blushed and affirmed that he had the right to stay here if he wanted. She had no problem with it at all. Taejun's face showed clear excitement, but contrary to what So-eun was thinking, he simply lay down and rested his head on her lap, saying he didn't need to eat. He just wanted to sleep, because he had been having trouble sleeping lately. He closed his eyes and enjoyed the peaceful feeling in her arms. So-eun gently cupped his face and told him he could. She also said she really wanted to watch him sleep. She had never seen it before. She was so gentle and lovely that Taejun melted. Unable to hold back, he reached up and softly brushed her hair aside. He asked about her past, everything, and finally asked her, "Why has your life come to this point?" Taejun thought about the loneliness So-eun had endured for so many years, the way she worked so diligently, and all alone, which made his heart ache with pity. And because of that loneliness, they had met again, when he leaned down beside her and asked if she had eaten lunch yet. Her story began with her first love, and it wasn't Yang Hui-wook, it was a little boy. Hearing about a third party appearing, Taejun immediately frowned, so So-eun quickly corrected herself. It was actually a little girl. More precisely, the boy was so beautiful he looked like a girl. So-eun no longer remembered the boy's face clearly, but she recalled that he was probably the child of a wealthy family. They often played hide-and-seek together in a very large house. Little So-eun at that time lived with her kind father. Like any other child, she had been spoiled and whiny. She deeply regretted it, believing that her naughtiness had caused her father's accident, the same accident that made the boy lose his parents. Taejun quickly interrupted her, saying it wasn't her fault at all. He remembered how adorable little So-eun had been. Back then, she had even fixed his broken cell phone for him. So-eun's eyes welled up with tears as she recalled those not-so-happy memories. That was why she had chosen to work in phone repair. She hoped to heal broken things for everyone. Taejun looked at her, filled with regret for the way he had possessively taken a fragile girl and made her cry. Yet in her memories of him, he was so wonderful. She whispered that she hoped the boy from back then was living a good life now, and wouldn't have to suffer any more pain. Taejun was deeply moved. He pulled her tightly into his arms, as silent tears rolled down his cheeks. She was still as lovable as when she was a child, pure and innocent amid all the scheming of adults. These thoughts consumed him throughout the long night. The next morning, he woke up and saw her cooking in the kitchen. She was making breakfast in her usual simple, dark-colored pajamas, looking anxious about the meal she was about to serve her boyfriend. Taejun walked over and gently asked from behind what she was cooking. She asked if he wanted kimchi stir-fry, and of course he said yes. He went to the side to pour himself some water. So-eun glanced at his perfect figure and blushed. Taejun noticed and teased her, saying she could stare at him as much as she wanted. After all, he was hers now. So-eun's mouth fell open, her face turning even redder, but she tried her best to finish preparing breakfast. Laughter and cheerful voices filled the small kitchen, just like a real family. And so breakfast ended and they headed to the company. As usual, his secretary was sluggishly dealing with the aches and pains of her older age. Suddenly, Taejun walked past and greeted her with the brightest smile she had ever seen from him, nearly making her jump out of her skin in shock. The joy of not having to face the young master's usual scowl, combined with the rare sight of Taejun's smile after so long, made the secretary feel truly relieved. In the happy home of the Yang family, Wee-wook's mother and older sister were eating together. The mother quietly brought up the topic of borrowing money with her eldest daughter, since the daughter had quite a few good connections. With some hesitation, the sister listened as her mother excitedly boasted that her investment had already doubled, and it would soon triple again in just a few short months. The mother wanted her daughter to help borrow some money for her and promised to pay it back immediately once this winning investment paid off. The sister looked shocked as she saw the tempting numbers dancing before her eyes. She felt worried about the risks. However, the mother revealed that she had been guided by her future daughter-in-law. The sister felt it was very unfair. Their mother only ever cared about her younger brother, while when she herself got married, their mother hadn't given her anything. She had to please her in-laws far more than necessary. Back at her own home, after putting her young son to sleep, the sister searched for information about the company belonging to her future sister-in-law's parents. Although the information looked clean, she was still full of doubt. But thinking about her own difficult circumstances, she recalled how her father had always believed he was born to be an entrepreneur. He had wasted half the family's fortune on failed business investments, to the point where he couldn't even afford the family's daily living expenses. Thinking about the prestige of being a lawyer's wife and the extra money she could earn to support her father-in-law's upcoming political campaign, the sister gritted her teeth and thought, if I could believe in all those ridiculous schemes of my parents, why can't I try believing one more time? And so with eyes shining with hope, she went all in. After that, we should leave those people behind and focus on the more lovable characters. At this moment, the repair team from Company K was having a drinking party at a restaurant. As usual, Bob Bay was the one creating the cute and lively atmosphere in the team. She was excitedly talking about the meal they were about to enjoy, and also hoped that the CEO wouldn't stay with them the entire time. So-eun felt a little embarrassed, and asked Bob Bay, "Don't you like the boss?" The adorable girl didn't hate the boss at all. She said their CEO was better suited to be admired from a distance. That's all. It made sense. So-eun's face turned completely red with shyness. Just as they mentioned him, the boss arrived, accompanied by Secretary Song. The meal went quite pleasantly for most people, though a few felt a bit awkward, especially Taejun, So-eun's colleague, and So-eun herself. It seemed they weren't used to this kind of team-building activity. While everyone was enjoying themselves, Bob Bay leaned her head on So-eun's shoulder and chatted intimately with her. She praised manager Jang, saying that So-eun and Jang were quite close at work and that he would make a great boyfriend. She even brought up the fact that So-eun's ex-boyfriend had come to the company to bother her, something So-eun hadn't told her current boyfriend about yet. So-eun could only sit there in silence. She couldn't stop Bob Bay's adorable mouth, nor could she cover Taejun's ears. Taejun immediately showed his irritation and questioned So-eun directly. "Manager Han, did your ex-boyfriend come to the company?" So-eun hurriedly replied that she had already told him not to come back. Even when Jang quietly spoke up, saying they shouldn't discuss this because So-eun wasn't comfortable with it, Taejun still couldn't hold back his anger. He said, "Haven't you clearly ended things with him? Do you think someone willing to come to your workplace and cause trouble will just obediently listen to polite words?" Jang Eun-pyo cut in firmly. "I already talked to him. I thought Manager Han would have a hard time dealing with him, so I stepped in and chased him away." Hearing Eun-pyo's report, Taejun breathed a sigh of relief. On the surface, he looked calm and attentive, but inside he was fuming and cursing silently. That damn show-off bastard. The thick scent of jealousy made So-eun want to cry an entire river in silence. With her many years of management experience, Secretary Song smoothly changed the subject to something more cheerful. Her thoughtfulness touched So-eun deeply. But the storm wasn't over yet. Bob Bay praised how delicious the garlic leaves were, and picked some up for So-eun. Yang hesitated as he looked at her. So-eun didn't know how to refuse, while Taejun generously called the server and ordered a lot more of it for the table. So-eun was wondering how to tell Taejun that she didn't want to eat the garlic leaves, when Secretary Song suggested pouring her a glass of soju. So-eun didn't refuse. She took just a small sip and immediately choked. Without caring about the people around them, Taejun quickly moved from his seat across the table to her side, worriedly patting her back and asking if she was okay. This situation made So-eun feel even more miserable. She cried silently in her heart, "Please don't do this. I'm not going to die." The scene left the other three people at the table stunned. Secretary Song once again stepped in to restore normalcy to the meal. Finally, the dinner ended. Bob Bae was completely drunk. Secretary Song helped her to the car and took her home in the director's private vehicle while the driver carried her bag. Now only the two men and So-eun remained. Taejun told Yang to head home first, but Yang refused, saying he would walk Manager Han back to her place. Taejun was furious inside, but he kept a calm expression and asked So-eun, "Manager Han, you live in Gwansandong, right?" He turned to Yang and said he had some business in that area anyway, so he would take her home. They caught a taxi together. Before getting in the car, Taejun turned back and gave Jang a victorious, triumphant smile as a farewell. The kind-hearted man stood there, quite worried about Han. The taxi drove off just like that. In the taxi, the couple sat with some distance between them, both feeling a little awkward. After a while, Taejun spoke up and asked, "How do you feel?" So-eun replied that she liked drinking alcohol. She liked it so much that she couldn't stop once she started, and she couldn't control herself anymore. But Taejun's question wasn't about that. He repeated gently, "Please tell me right away if something like that happens. It's really upsetting to have to hear about your matters from other people, especially from other men like Jongmin Pyo, instead of from you." She answered yes and fell silent. Taejun continued asking, "What did that lawyer come to see you for? Did he want to get back together?" So-eun didn't answer. She knew she couldn't prove anything if someone didn't trust her, so she chose to stay quiet. Taejun glanced out the window with cold eyes and muttered, "That bastard, even after what he did to your liver." In his mind, he replayed the scene of her ex-boyfriend showing up at his company. A guy had taken a number to meet her. Who knew how many times he had done that before? Taejun guessed that So-eun, who valued memory so much, wouldn't speak harshly to him no matter how big his mistakes were. Everyone makes mistakes after all. Even Taejun himself had made them when he was little, but his grandfather had never allowed that for him. Other people could make mistakes, but he was not allowed to. The frustration he had nowhere to vent made Taejun's head throb painfully. So-eun looked at him with worry and guilt in her eyes. A moment later, Taejun calmed down and apologized to her for losing his temper. So-eun's eyes widened in surprise. She was shocked to be treated with such respect. He asked her to share everything with him from now on. For the first time, someone was giving her permission to feel uncomfortable about things that made her uncomfortable. Her heart raced wildly, her eyes welled up with emotion, and her hands clenched tightly on her lap. So-eun turned her face away to hide the tears that were about to fall. She thought to herself, "Oh, this man, I really like him." In another scene, Hyunjin's ultimatum arrived. "If you want to marry me, bring me the real ring." Hui-wook stared at the message, his heart twisting with regret over the money. Feeling a surge of resentment toward his new fiancée, young Hui-wook wondered why he had to beg to marry a woman who treated her husband like this. But whatever, he'd marry her first. He looked at the expensive ring. He had clearly swapped it, so how had he still ended up giving her the fake one? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Young Hui-wook walked down the hallway toward Hyunjin's office. They were in the same building, yet she only contacted him through messages. As he reached the door, he heard Hyunjin's intimate laughter with a male colleague. Jealousy flared up. Young Hui-wook raised his voice and called out, "Lawyer Choi." Hyunjin only responded irritably, "Lawyer Yang, you should knock before entering, shouldn't you?" Out of arguments, Yang Hui-wook could only force a smile and apologize for his rudeness. He then handed over the real ring. Hyunjin looked satisfied and said his mother would surely be very proud to have such a high-quality daughter-in-law. She also told him to tell his mother not to call her so often. She didn't have time for those endless phone calls. Hui-wook suppressed his anger and left. His head felt like it was about to explode, but he didn't dare argue with his new fiancée. In his mind, he couldn't help comparing her to So-eun. So-eun's gentle and soft demeanor had never exhausted him like this. Thinking back, he felt a bit irritated. So-eun had scolded him and said she already had a new boyfriend. This made Yang Hui-wook curious about who that person was. Could it be the colleague who had stepped in to protect her that day? He had always believed he was far superior to So-eun. After all, she had even donated her liver to his family. A bold idea suddenly popped into Yang Hui-wook's head. He would squeeze everything he could out of Hyunjin and then go back to So-eun. He was certain that So-eun couldn't live without him. That would be perfect for both him and her. He turned on the location tracker for So-eun's home. She was at her apartment. So-eun, however, wasn't thinking about him at all. Right now, she was lying under the blanket, feeling guilty that Taejun was sleeping on the floor. It didn't seem right for a CEO like him. Taejun, who had shed his usual cold CEO image, lay cheerfully on the floor and said it was fine. He felt very comfortable. So-eun insisted she couldn't sleep while he was on the floor, and suggested he go home to sleep properly. Taejun sat up, complaining about being chased away, then suddenly pulled her down onto the floor with him. "There, now it's perfect," he said. In her drowsy state, So-eun lay there and talked with Taejun. She said she wanted to have a lot of money, so she could buy a bigger house. She would work hard and wanted to give him everything beautiful in the world. As sleepiness washed over her, So-eun unconsciously murmured that she liked him so much. He gave her the strength to do anything. Then she became sad, saying she had nothing to give him except her body and her heart. Her soft, sleepy whispers soothed Taejun's tired heart. He closed his eyes and savored the feeling of having her in his arms. Ever since learning about So-eun's liver donation, Taejun had been blaming himself a lot. He had started treating her much more gently and intimately. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "Han So-eun, what I want most is for you to stop enduring everything from now on. I don't own you, and you don't belong to anyone else either, because I won't let anything take you away from me again. You are the owner of yourself." So-eun wasn't fully asleep yet. She asked softly, "But if you are mine, Mr. CEO, then does that mean I'm also yours?" "Of course." He pulled her closer into his embrace. He wanted her to never realize just how wonderful she was, so he could monopolize that brilliant light all to himself. No matter how many people he met, only she had always been the one who lit up his world. The next morning, So-eun's eyes were still tightly closed, but her nose was already working. She smelled the delicious aroma of food coming from somewhere. She cracked her eyes open and saw the familiar figure of her man right in front of her, looking so real and warm. He brought the food to the table and told her to stop using his formal title and call him Oppa instead. He was delighted when she shyly repeated it after him, stumbling over the word. He had ordered kimbap from her favorite restaurant and their breakfast was ready. He teased her about getting drunk last night, saying she didn't remember what she had said. He then made up a bunch of cheesy, cringy lines that made So-eun blush furiously in embarrassment. And just like that, the weekend came to an end. That morning, they returned to work. After finishing her morning routine and changing clothes, So-eun saw that Taejun was already ready to go. She asked if he had any schedule today. He told her he had to fly to the US urgently that day. He didn't know when he would be back, but he would try to return as soon as possible once everything was settled. If anything happened, she should call him. With that, Taejun left first. So-eun was about to head to work when she heard a knock at the door. Thinking Taejun had come back for something, she quickly opened it, but standing outside was the last person she wanted to see, Yang Hui-wook. He glared at her and demanded, "Was the man who stayed with you last night Kim Taejun?" Last night he had followed her location tracker and came here. He had witnessed her entering the house with another man. He had sat in his car all night waiting, and only in the morning did he see So-eun's new boyfriend walk out and catch a taxi. Hui-wook was shocked when he realized it was Kim Taejun, and he rushed straight up to her room to confront her. He went berserk, grabbing her arm and shouting at the top of his lungs, even as So-eun told him to leave. It wasn't until a neighbor came out and asked if she needed the police that So-eun quickly answered, "Yes, please." Only then did he reluctantly leave, seething with rage. So-eun thanked her neighbor and apologized for bothering her. She stepped back inside, locked the door, and only then did her body start trembling with fear. She picked up her phone, wanting to call Taejun immediately, but realized he was already on his way to the US and couldn't come back right away. So-eun paused, suddenly realizing she now had someone who was ready to run to her side whenever she wanted to talk. She calmed herself down, turning her love into strength. She refused to let one scumbag, who no longer had anything to do with her, ruin her day. The work day at the company began. Babe was whining, upset that she couldn't remember how drunk she had gotten last night, or if she had done anything embarrassing. So-eun smiled and reassured her. Even Secretary Song greeted them cheerfully. Jong Eun-pyo, with his outstanding academic knowledge, explained some physics facts about the moon to them, earning admiration from the team. Meanwhile, So-eun was daydreaming about her boyfriend, who was flying across the ocean. She hoped he would come back soon. Halfway across the globe, Taejun sat quietly, waiting for a message from So-eun. She was probably busy working right now, but he still wanted to call just to hear her voice. When she asked if he had slept well, she finally told him what had happened. That Yang Hui-wook had come to her house and caused trouble right after he left yesterday. Taejun was stunned and worried, but it seemed everything had been handled. He asked if she needed extra security. She said she was fine. And so, another workday began. In So-eun's heart, a comfortable and warm feeling rose up. She looked at Taejun's messages. Everything would be even more perfect if it weren't for that bastard Yang Hui-wook. So-eun muttered a curse under her breath, which made the team leader jump in surprise. He couldn't understand why their usually gentle employee was suddenly swearing, and then immediately looking bright and cheerful again, right after. It was a pleasant workday at Yeolgu law firm where Hui-wook worked. The diligent busy bee Hui-wook was racking his brains, trying to find a big deal to make real money. Those small, trivial lawsuits barely brought in anything. Suddenly, he overheard his colleagues whispering outside the door about the rumor that their law firm was going to merge with a much larger international law firm. The discussion was scheduled for next week. Hui-wook's eyes lit up as he thought about the generous compensation package that would come with the merger. Just as joy was surging inside him, a hopeful phone call arrived right at that moment. It was Kim Taejun calling.
Hui-wook believed he had struck gold by knowing a weakness of such an influential person.
He immediately picked up the phone, confident that Taejun was calling to find a way to silence him about the dating scandal with So-eun. Taejun's voice came through, straightforward as always. "Hello, Mr. Yang. I'll only take a few minutes. This is Kim Taejun." Yang raised his voice and immediately asked about his reward, but Taejun replied, "Honestly, I was quite disappointed with the job you did last time. So no, I won't be giving you any reward at this moment." Yang's face darkened. He cursed Taejun's arrogance inwardly and quickly switched to a threatening tone. "If I were you, I'd be very careful with my words. Every single thing I say about your little relationship with So-eun could ruin you." He smiled smugly, thinking it was better to threaten first and seize the upper hand. He pressed the record button on the call and waited to catch Kim Taejun off guard. But the voice on the other end went straight to the point. "So-eun was the one who donated her liver to your mother, wasn't she?" Hui-wook's smile instantly vanished. The real accusation had only just begun. "I noticed some inconsistencies in the signatures when I reviewed the documents. Several of them weren't written by So-eun. Tell me, what happens to a lawyer if they're caught forging signatures? Oh, and by the way, I also heard that your father enjoys playing golf. He plays at the club I invested in, so I occasionally hear things about him. It seems he has been harassing the female staff there and pursuing women who have no interest in him, just like his son. Anyway, congratulations on your engagement. I hope your wedding goes well. I'll hang up now. I still have work to do." With that, Taejun ended the call. Hui-wook collapsed onto the floor, his whole body drained of strength. He muttered curses under his breath. "What the fuck? How the hell does he know all of this? Did he investigate me? Since when? How much does he already know?" His loud scream echoed through the room, startling his colleagues, who looked over curiously for a moment. Meanwhile, the sun was still shining brightly outside. It was a warm, sunny day, and inside So-eun's heart, everything felt just as warm and smooth.
So-eun was out buying drinks with Babe when she excused herself to take a phone call in a quieter corner. Sweet words flowed between the two ends of the line.
"Have you had lunch yet?" "I already ate, and I'm heading back to the office now." Those obedient words made Taejun feel much more at ease. Her voice sounded much better than it had that morning. He reassured her, "That bastard won't bother you anymore." So-eun asked excitedly, "Who's the bastard you're talking about?" "Hui-wook." So-eun's face stiffened when she heard the answer. Taejun said he hadn't done anything much, He had simply laid out the pros and cons for the guy. He also reminded her to always check before opening the door, and scolded her for dating someone like that. So-eun obediently replied, feeling completely reassured, but Taejun continued, "It wasn't your fault." So-eun fell silent. Taejun spoke gently. "Sometimes the heart gets hungry just like the stomach. So just eat whatever you like. At first, everything looks delicious, right? I know why you didn't tell me what happened at the beginning. You were afraid it would mess up my schedule. That means you like me a lot, and you can't live without me, doesn't it?" So-eun wiped away her tears, overwhelmed with emotion and happiness. Taejun wasn't done yet. He asked, "Tell me, what exactly do you like about me? Don't give me those ordinary reasons like handsome, rich, smart, healthy. Tell me something more special." So-eun laughed. "I don't think those things are ordinary at all. Besides, you're not as attractive as you think you are." Taejun kept pestering her, refusing to let her go back to work until she gave him a precise reason. So-eun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She thought to herself, what else is there besides handsome, rich, and smart? Suddenly, she remembered his strong muscles. Under Taejun's urging, she blurted out, "I think you're really good at endurance." Taejun cleared his throat and smiled faintly. "Endurance? You mean my stamina in bed? And how would you know that? Do you have something to compare me with?" So-eun panicked and tried to explain herself, her face turning bright red. That was how he had promised her he would return to Korea today, but he actually wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. She asked in surprise, "You finished your work that quickly?" Taejun replied, "I couldn't stay there any longer when there's someone out here who can't live without me. You made me so worried that I couldn't even enjoy the trip." So-eun looked up at the sky and wondered why he liked her so much. She liked him for his charm. And finally, the days of waiting came to an end. It was Friday evening in Korea. Taejun landed at the airport, exhausted. He had run out of energy after staying awake and working non-stop throughout the trip. The only good thing was that he had finished an entire week's worth of work in just 2 days. Right now, he needed So-eun immediately. He missed her terribly. His assistant called and came to pick him up. Taejun planned to take a good nap in the car on the way back to Seoul, then take So-eun to the mountains or the beach no matter what. Just as he was feeling excited, a flash of alertness appeared in Taejun's eyes. Someone was approaching, a familiar figure. She greeted him, and he immediately recognized her. It was Hwi-wook's girlfriend. At home, So-eun had just received a message from Taejun saying he had landed at the airport and would pick her up in about 3 hours. He asked whether she preferred the mountains or the beach. So-eun chose the beach. She neatly packed her suitcase and sat waiting. He seemed a little late. She looked out the window, thinking he might surprise her again by waiting downstairs like last time. Her phone rang. Taejun said he would be a bit late and told her to rest while waiting for him. So-eun felt slightly disappointed, but asked if he wanted to sleep first and meet tomorrow instead. Taejun replied that he didn't. He had something to take care of and was already on the way. He would be there in 2 hours. She worried about Taejun. It was already midnight. Had he pushed himself too hard again? Despite her concern, So-eun managed to fall into a deep, comfortable sleep before Taejun finally arrived. She came out to greet him in a drowsy, half-asleep state. Her adorable appearance instantly lifted Taejun's mood. He pulled her into a tight embrace, recharging himself with her warmth. Taejun didn't go inside the house. He told her they were leaving right now, instead of waiting until morning as planned. There were a few things he wanted to show her. They got into the car. Taejun drove while So-eun felt sorry for him. He had just come back from a long trip and hadn't rested at all, only because he wanted to take her somewhere. Seeing her face that looked like she was about to cry, Taejun gently kissed her cheek to comfort her. He said he would sleep if he needed to on the way, so she should sleep too. He draped a thin blanket over her, reclined her seat, and insisted she rest. So-eun protested, "It's not fair. I'm not even sleepy." But her body betrayed her. She drifted off just seconds later. Taejun smiled and whispered that he would wake her when the sun rose. So-eun mumbled a few words before falling into a deep sleep. Taejun glanced at her and thought to himself, I couldn't bear it if she didn't get a good night's sleep. Before long, they had arrived at the beach. The noisy cries of seagulls and the bright sunlight woke So-eun up. Taejun was dozing in the driver's seat. The scene was peaceful and perfect. She leaned closer to admire his breathtakingly handsome face. The moment she got near, Taejun woke up. He opened his eyes and looked at her intently, his gaze filled with longing. He cupped her cheek and placed a gentle kiss on her lips. They stepped out and admired the vibrant shoreline, talking about their plans. He said, "There's a national park called Bryce Canyon in Utah. It's a red desert full of jagged rock formations. When the sun rises, everything glows with fiery light. I'm not good at describing it, but if you sit on a rock and watch the sunrise, you'll feel as small as a pebble or a grain of sand blowing in the wind. When I was there, I felt tiny, but it also made me feel like I could live forever. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. This place is wonderful too, but we should go there someday. I'll take you. It would be even better together." So-eun looked into Taejun's gentle eyes, lost in thought about the future he had just described. She listened to him talk about their future, and felt a dreamy haze wash over her. In his arms, she wondered how he could so easily promise her a future like that. One stumble had made So-eun doubt her own worth. She thought she was too ordinary to deserve this perfect man. But she didn't know that she had already completely owned his heart for a long time. It was simply natural. After watching the sunrise, they went to a small restaurant. Traditional dishes were served, and both of them ate with great appetite. So-eun wondered if everything felt 10 times more wonderful just because he was with her. Taejun asked if they should check into a hotel to sleep. The suggestion made her blush and fall silent. Sleep? What kind of sleep does he mean? While she was feeling embarrassed, the restaurant owner came over and asked if they were from Seoul. She even complimented So-eun, saying she had such a handsome husband. Before So-eun could reply, Taejun smiled brightly and answered the owner, "She's even more beautiful." Of course, the owner also thought So-eun was very pretty. They really were such a lovely couple. After that, they went to the hotel. The sky quickly darkened. So-eun lay there, not knowing what else to do but wait for Taejun to wake up. He really was sleeping. He wasn't joking. She turned to look at him sleeping soundly and felt a strange comfort, seeing him look so tired in a place that wasn't home or the office, where he was always wide awake and alert. After several canceled trips, he must have been exhausted these past few days, especially after driving all night. She reached out and gently brushed the messy strands of hair from his face, her heart aching for his fatigue. She thought about the future. One day he would meet a perfect girl to marry, and wondered if his family would ever know about her while they were still hiding their relationship. She stayed there, watching him and lost in her thoughts, until she eventually fell asleep too. She woke up at 3:30 a.m. Taejun was already awake. Outside it was raining. Just as So-eun walked to the window, Taejun came back into the room wearing workout clothes. He had just come from the gym downstairs. They couldn't go anywhere that day because of the rain, and several attractions were closed. However, Taejun knew there was an indoor swimming pool available for free to hotel guests. So-eun was happy with the idea. They quickly headed to the pool. Even though it was raining, being in the pool and watching the rain with Taejun made her feel happy too. Just being able to swim and admire her boyfriend's perfect body was already wonderful enough. Time together passed much faster than normal. They had used up their 2 nights and 3 days and had to check out. During those 3 days, they had actually only slept in the healthiest way possible. They enjoyed the scenery, ate delicious food, and that was all. In her head, So-eun had asked herself 1,001 questions. Was he exhausted? Had he gotten bored of her? Or was he uncomfortable about the surgery after learning what happened when she talked to Hui-wook? She couldn't figure it out and decided to be straightforward. In the late afternoon, they drove back to Seoul. Taejun said she must be tired and told her to sleep. But So-eun hesitated and said, "Director, can I ask you something?" "Yeah, go ahead." Why in the end we didn't do it?" Taejun was stunned. He replied, "Because I wanted to cherish the time with you, I didn't want to ruin it." So-eun froze. She remembered that when she was preparing for the liver donation surgery, Hui-wook had also refused to do anything, saying he wanted to cherish her first time. So-eun felt a sudden unease. She didn't understand what they both meant by cherish. She felt ashamed and turned her face away, looking sad. Taejun pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned to her and said, "Hey, look at me. Are you serious?" She lowered her head and stammered, "It's not that I crave it. Last week you couldn't even feel satisfied with me, and now you won't even touch me." Taejun glanced at her and said, "I thought you didn't like being forced."
She quickly replied, I never said I didn't like it. It just makes me feel like I'm not good enough, or that you're not well, or even, some health issue.
Taejun didn't let her finish. He turned and kissed her fiercely. This is why I couldn't, Taejun said with a bitter smile. Why do you make me feel so terrible? I wanted to be a good person. I can't turn back time for acting like a beast just to satisfy my desires. You always say you're fine, and never show your real feelings, even if you're crying inside. That's why I had to hold back. He sighed, feeling relieved. If you want it, then I have no reason to refuse. All right, let's go to my place. And so they arrived home. Taejun carried her in his arms straight into the bedroom. It was already late at night, and the house was completely quiet. The sound of their heartbeats seemed louder than ever. He urgently released all the restraint he had held back for the past 10 days and dove in without hesitation. So-eun, feeling anxious, told him to turn off the lights. It's too bright. But this time Taejun refused to do it in the dark. He whispered, It's okay. He began his rhythm, then leaned down to gently stroke her face, smiling softly. Hey, it's fine. Normally she was the one who said those words to hide her true feelings, but this time it was him saying it, and hearing those words made her feel truly okay. So-eun covered her face in embarrassment and protested again that it was too bright, but it was already too late. Taejun had pressed his hot lips against the scars on her body. His eyes were filled with fascination as he gazed at her. He said, This time I won't listen to you. I want to admire your beauty. So-eun gripped the sheets tightly, trying to control the overwhelming emotion surging in her heart. She felt deeply moved and incredibly happy. She wanted more. She wanted him to look at her with those captivated eyes, not at her scars. After the passionate storm, Taejun lay down beside her, speaking in a soft, intimate voice. What do you like about me? You still haven't answered my question from last time. So-eun pouted, pretending to think hard, and came up with what she thought was a very convincing answer. It's your handwriting. A man with such beautiful handwriting is truly rare. Taejun was rendered speechless. She must have been referring to the note he had left on her door last time. He immediately whined and pressed her. Do you like the handwriting or the person? She teased him, only to have her words instantly silenced by his lips. Suddenly, Taejun jumped out of bed and said her lips were dry. He would get her some water. This childish, spoiled side of Taejun was something only she got to see. She pulled the blanket up to her chin in shyness. She thought about all the compliments the female employees gave him and realized he really was a kind person. Just as she was feeling happy, Taejun's phone suddenly rang. She was about to hand it to him when the caller's name appeared on the screen, making her blood run cold. It was a missed call from Choi Hyun-jin, Hui-wook's girlfriend, along with 3 unread messages.